just thinking for a second about Ideas UK before we kind of go on to today's session. I would like to just remind you that the Idea of the Year competition is open. So we're accepting those fabulous ideas that have really made a difference to your business over the last 12 months. And the closing date for our competition is the 10th of September. So when you think we've got the summer break coming up, now could be that perfect opportunity to really think about which ideas you might want to put through to our competition. You can enter 10 ideas per organisation, and it's a great way to really show employees that you care and that their ideas have really made a difference to your organisation. So do think about which ideas you could put forward this year, and who knows, you may be a winner. So I'll stop sharing now and hand over to Connor and our knowledge nugget for today.
Yeah, brilliant. So today we've got a great one. We've got Mr. John Feeney in the house. So John he's the innovation and culinary director for a company called Griffith Food. So Griffith Food is like one of the huge companies you've never heard of. It works with some huge food brands. So John works with some massive brands as well as a lot of sort of TV chefs, believe it or not. So very exciting stuff today. So yeah, if Willy Wonka had employed a development chef, John definitely would have got the job. I can certainly vouch for that, and you can definitely vouch for that after this presentation. So I think we'll get right into it. So John, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, all good.
Good. So Connor, if you want to put it onto the slides, and we'll start with the first slide. I'm going to show you a couple of slides. Not too many, it's not death by PowerPoint. Obviously, I'm a chef, so I like to show you stuff. Obviously, Sarah has said about tasting. Unfortunately, not today. There's a couple of videos. So there's a video which actually gives you a little bit of insight about me as a person from the perspective of a couple of well-known chefs. There's another video which I'll show you, which is our latest installment in development. So we work in alternative protein, we work in snacks, we work in QSR, retail, food service, manufacturing. We're a family-owned business over 100 years old, and it's our honor to be sort of like hopefully steering that nutritious, delicious culture, looking at using waste products and really sort of like taking the responsibility to food. So first slide is a video, 2.5 minutes. I'll let you listen.
What we do here at the Hand of Flowers is a 2 Michelin star environment in a traditional British pub, but we are always trying to push boundaries. We're always trying to be at the forefront of what we do, trying to be recognised for being the best at what we do simply.
Our cuisine's about flavour. So I don't think Michelin stars got fuck all to do with it. I just think it's about hopefully trying to be a really good cook. And by being a good cook, you have to have brilliant people around you. And the way to do that is have brilliant suppliers, brilliant staff, and brilliant innovators in the industry.
In some ways it's different working with supermarkets or big brands, or how you drive fast food chains forward. But the idea of going, well, how do you make portions of chips very crispy, or how do you cook a burger perfectly? You can do it on that sort of scale, to us, we're always very interested in how that can be shortened, made smaller, and an understanding of the science is where we would come in. That's where we would love to learn so much, and that's why the innovation and development chefs for us are by far one of the most, if not the most important areas of the chef industry.
There's some really interesting stuff that John works with that I don't think, without knowing someone like John, we might not find out about for like another 10 years until it's in like the mainstream market. And like a supplier who we get our dry ingredients from, or fresh ingredients or whatever, might say, yeah, cool, we've just found about this ingredient, it's gluten-free, it's vegan, whatever, and you can use it as a replacement for such and such, but it's not going to compromise on flavour and texture and that sort of thing. So I think what John does for us in that respect is really, really useful.
You know, if you look at things like what he's brought to the table here is the black garlic he bought originally, never seen it before, so he's introducing us to new products. The freeze jar, we wouldn't have a freeze jar if it wasn't for John. We wouldn't have a centrifuge if it wasn't for John. We didn't have a clue how to use it. So I had a quick phone call to John, centrifuge, talk about it. He gives us every single little bit of information he's got because he's got a wealth of knowledge on it. We take that knowledge on, we buy a centrifuge, next thing you know, our food has been elevated because of that one little conversation.
I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I do development everywhere I go, so I'm developing all the time. But I've got people like John Feeney that I can give a call or a text, and within a few minutes the answers are there for me, or an idea, or another antagonist to say, why are you doing that? What about this? And it's a challenge.
So from my point of view, innovation and development of dishes, recipes and food is where the science comes in to take simple ingredients but take them to the next level and to the best level that they can be. And all of that comes through and is fed through innovative chefs and people like John Feeney driving things forward.
If Michelin gave out stars for development chefs, John would have 3 stars.
So that's a little bit about myself. Connor, next slide. So my day-to-day is very mixed bag. As a development chef, it's crucial to be on the farm, knowing how things grow, looking at waste streams. And fortunately, we're like an onion. We have loads of layers. We know different chefs from barbecue world, chefs over in Japan. We're fortunate as a business. We've got about 26 kitchens around the world, food trucks. So we have to be very flexible. We have to be mindful of all the different trends and different flavor profiles that are coming into play. A big inspiration is my family, what my family like to eat. And also I'm fortunate I get to work. There's a picture there where I'm actually working at the Olympics, working with McDonald's, working with retail. So, you know, I get to play with the big players, I get to play with the little players. And my aim is to make, you know, food delicious and obtainable for all sorts of people. Next slide. As my introduction was announced, I'm considered a bit of a Willy Wonka. So what I'm going to do is actually take you into our latest presentation that we did a couple of weeks ago on a webinar, which was to look at the future of snacking, but also taking on board waste, health and nutrition. And also on this particular brief, we were looking at the Gen Z, making it fun. So if you play the video, I'll talk through the products. Yeah, so this was the tattooed beetroot. So look, using beetroot, no added sugar, no added salt, fiber, texturizing it. These were coated beetroot nuts with a pecan nut flavor. Again, really crispy, crunchy, and full of flavor. We do them fryer and non-fryer. This was the jazzy carrots with texturized seeds and a Korean flavor profile. This was a no nuts. Again, no nuts at all, but with the taste of nuts and that satay flavor. This was using waste brewer spent grain and green banana flour. It's important to also have the latest understanding of equipment. So these were snacks that were devised through culture. If you eat calzots or asparagus, you load it into your mouth. This was using BSG. So this was brewer spent grain. It was a waste product that we use in making coated beer nuts. This was watermelon jerky, even using the skin. So we made it like cornichons and watermelon jerky, spicy. This was inspired by Dot Jot, which is a Thai cookie that you find on the street market. Again, some of their ingredients that they used were not good for us in Europe. That's alternative protein ripster and tofu crisps. These were coated like mini donut chocolate crispy bites. Again, this the first draft in a fryer didn't work, but we capture what doesn't work. This was the sushi, the fishless sushi. This was using chicken skin and making like jammy dodgers using chicken liver parfait, all the waste skin. This is me. I'm unfortunate, I get to eat a lot. This was crispy kale from the barbecue. And then this was using oblalato sheets and using candy floss pork and sweet potatoes, and then an Italian version. This is the chicken bonbons, ovenable. Tofu salami. This was I was quite pleased with this. Took this to my local pizza store. They've been really inspired by this. And then finally, seaweed is something that Gen Z like, and that was the onion barges with seaweed, and I'll talk about them later on. So pride, love, connection, and fun. I think these are all things that you can associate with a chef, a restaurant, and people who serve food. Next slide. So Ferrero Rocher, we're all familiar with Ferrero Rocher. So just to give you a sort of an idea of creativity, next slide. How do we take Ferrero Rocher and Melba toast or nice crispy bread and pate and marry that together? Obviously at this particular time, how do we pimp it up and then get the result to something that is a familiar Ferrero Rocher looking product? Next slide. So what we did here, we took the waste bread and some sourdough, some kibbled chocolate, the parfait itself, and we even built it like a Ferrero Rocher. So in the center was the toasted hazelnut, and then built that up to make it a hot, delicious mouthful, the size that you would associate with a Ferrero Rocher. This was done probably about 10 years ago. So, and I still get asked regular at parties to do this dish. Next one. Love. Love. Next one. Not so lovely. Seaweed. So how do you make seaweed delicious? And you saw that in the last video. If you go to the next slide. But how do we also sea vegetables, make them delicious and something that people are going to consume? Next slide. How do we get that opportunity of that lip smacking deliciousness? Next slide. So what we did, we married an onion bhaji. We took away the amount of onions that are normally associated with an onion bhaji and replaced it by 60% with seaweed. And then also what we did, rather than to have these as snackables that you can walk around with, eat on the plane, eat on the go, we used freeze-dry technology. So they're these flavoursome, delicious bhajis as you would know them, with seaweed goodness, and we freeze-dried them so they were a crunchy, exploding in the mouth deliciousness. Next slide. So fire was the center of our opportunity to sort of open up kitchens, open up civilization. So when I think about fire, I think about this next dish. Barbecue ribs. And there was a lot of barbecue consumed this Sunday. Unfortunately, not with the result that we wanted on the TV, but we'll move on from that. Next slide. So how can we get that lip smacking deliciousness of barbecue in a white tablecloth environment? So we can't all stand around the barbecue and then be in our best gear, and then come out smelling like we've been in a smoking shed. So what we did, we came up with an idea that can bring barbecue to the table. Next slide. So we came up with this Kiss of the Smoke barbecue lipstick that you can actually put, and this is a sensory, this becomes a sensory opportunity around the table. So you put the lipstick on, and it's great when you see the guys doing this as well, in a white tablecloth environment. They put the lipstick on, and it opens up the nasal receptors to being around the barbecue. So it's got all the smoke, all the fat from the beef or the pork, whichever dish you cook. And then what we done is took it a little bit further. We made this ideasUK caviar to elevate the experience. Rather than just put barbecue sauce on, we put this ideasUK caviar. Next slide. Waffles. Waffles are coming back in popularity because you've got the bubble waffles. And funny enough, I'm here in London at the moment, and just around the corner in Soho, they do the bubble waffles as a dessert. But no one's thought about doing them as a savory snack. Next slide. So this was the first draft, and I sometimes like to show what was the first draft for the things that didn't quite work straight away. This was then, we created some molds, and we took the barbecue pulled pork and beef and chicken, and we encapsulated that into a waffle, a bubble waffle, and made that like a savory galaxy bar. So you had that barbecue experience in the center. Next slide. Even on lockdown, my kids got to have me experiment, and we were doing cooked breakfast, and we found a tin of Spam, and it was interesting in lockdown, the amount of people that went back to tinned food. So we did Spam into the actual bubble waffles inside, and I made that a breakfast as well. We did also use other ingredients like moringa powder, making them green and nutritious delicious. Next slide. So it's all about fun. It's all about theatre. It's nowadays, when you go out to a restaurant, you can have a restaurant where you can hear the nice forks and spoons, and it's very formal, and it's a bit like opera. You can go to other restaurants where it feels like you're body surfing at a concert. So what I like is the fun and the theatre that food brings, and for the experience of the consumer. Next slide. So balloons, we all think of party, good times. This next dish was inspired by using balloons, and this was probably about, again, 10, 12 years ago, and most of the chefs actually do this now. Next slide. So I took mascarpone, and mascarpone is something I like using in tiramisu. But for this particular dish, for example, I use, next slide, beetroot. So I took mascarpone and beetroot and the idea of a balloon to then create this dish. So next slide. So we actually then created a beetroot balloon with mascarpone filling. And it was like an inside-out cheesecake. And again, when you serve a hot sauce, you get that where people trickle it over the actual balloon, and it opens up like a lily. Next slide. So there isn't one key to innovation that fits, you come up with the ideas. It's not one key fits all. I take inspiration from a lot of places I go out and eat, social media, investigation into different cultures and countries. I'm fortunate I get invited all over the world, although that hasn't been the case over the last year and a half. But again, next slide, one of my biggest inspirations is nature itself and what it provides, but also looking at waste stream. A lot of my briefs I get are, how can we look at we've got an abundance of chicken drumsticks, or we've got an abundance of green banana flour, or we've got this new ingredient from Africa. So there's a lot of inspiration from what's grown and the fact that there is a heavy amount of waste food around the world. Next slide. Well, it's not a slide, it's a video.
Some call me nature. Others call me Mother Nature. I've been here for over 4.5 billion years. 22,500 times longer than you. I don't really need people, but people need me. Yes, your future depends on me. When I thrive, you thrive. When I falter, you falter. Or worse. But I've been here for eons. I have fed species greater than you, and I have starved species greater than you. My oceans, my soil, my flowing streams, my forests, they all can take you or leave you. How you choose to live each day, whether you regard or disregard me, doesn't really matter to me. One way or the other. Your actions will determine your fate, not mine. I am nature. I will go on. I am prepared to evolve. Are you?
It's a great video, isn't it? It still gives me goose pimples, and I've probably watched it about 20 odd times. Next slide. So that's me, John Feeney, Culinary Innovation Director at Europe. And I wanted to give you a slice of the world of chef development and the world of responsibility around food. I hope that was good for you. Any questions?
Thanks, John. I'll kick off with a question, but if anyone's got any questions that they'd either like to ask directly to John or pop in the chat function and we will ask on your behalf. So, John, you finished with a really powerful video about nature and sustainability. How kind of much do I guess some of those top chefs take into account that kind of sustainability angle, the lack of food waste? What's kind of being done or is on the horizon to really, I guess, look after nature for the future in the food world?
Well, a lot of chefs are taking it extremely responsible. I mean, there's a guy called Doug McMaster in London. He's doing a wonderful job. It's a restaurant called Silo, and he's inspired me a couple of times, and I've taken with pride some of his learnings, which is, for example, you know, I now at work, I actually compost all my waste, and I actually then give that back to my underground micro cress growing business in the middle of Sheffield, believe it or not, under, you know, some old buildings. So he's been a great inspiration, even down to sort of milling your own flowers. I mean, you've got to balance it, because also at the end of the day, we can't do it all. We have to do it as a team. Some people have now changed their menu and don't use, for example, lemons and other ingredients that have to be shipped. Now, again, I think there's each person has the opportunity to, I don't know, write their menu how they want. And maybe some people do take it quite literal that they have a 25-mile radius of what they do with their menu offer. I mean, if we were all to do that, it wouldn't be sustainable going forward. So it's a balance, like anything.
Yeah.
I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. We've had a couple of questions come in, actually. So the first one was, we've got lots of questions actually. Do you envisage there'll be a decline in meat eating in future years, and potentially will there be a move to insect-based protein food?
Again, I'll start with what I finished last time. It's about balance.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know, and I'm probably guilty of it. I mean, this weekend I probably had too much meat from the barbecue. But saying that, at the beginning of the week on the Monday, I was working with a load of barbecue enthusiasts, and you know, vegetables to them are like, you know, they put the sign up, no vegetables. But by the end of my session with them, I had actually done a vegetable shawarma, which I compressed 12 different seasonal vegetables, and then served that on a flatbread using brewer spent grain and texturized it. Now, I gave them a choice if they wanted meat on top of that, but by the end of it, every one of them wanted to know how they do that, or how you do that. So again, I'm an ambassador for change as well. And, you know, going to people like the likes of barbecue enthusiasts, it is predominantly about the meat. I think we all need to balance how much meat we eat. And I'm an old boy now. I remember when we used to have the Sunday roast, and that used to last for 4 meals, you know, including the gravy and the bread at the 4th meal, you know, with the bits. So yes, I think we are consuming too much meat, but it's a balance. And in reference to insects, again, people will eat insects, and we've done some surveys on this before. We've done protein where we've done buffalo worms, and we've involved it or put it into the bread. I think when you're seeing the critters in front of you, and it looks like a bit like I'm a celebrity, get me out of here, you're a bit reluctant to eat that. And I think we just have to educate ourselves, be it chefs, of how the consumers want these dishes going forward. I think everyone's mindful that we have to change and we have to balance. People are not that silly.
Yeah. Question from Joe. How long does it take to develop or innovate a new dish, and what's the process you go through?
I'm constantly thinking of what my next dishes are. Funny enough, have you seen the kids with their latest poppers, like the bubble wrap where they keep pressing their plastic? I've created a couple of new dishes just by looking at my kids' toys. So I'm constantly looking around me at what's going on, what kids play, what's on social media. So I'm fortunate. On the lockdown, I got to train with the guys from the Innovation Network, and now I'm actually working in a more constructive way. So I've got a Miro board on my phone where I actually capture anything that I think is out there, creative. So I then put that to a Miro board of next ideas. So I'll be honest with you, I'm an idiot. I don't switch off. I live, breathe. My lifestyle is food, and you know, I like it because it's a hobby. It's a business, but to capture what, you know, you used to wake up, or you didn't used to go to sleep. Sometimes you'd write it on the post-it note or on a notebook next to you. What I like about the Miro board is you can splash them ideas, the pictures, the videos, and how you saw that onto that board, and then you go to sleep a little bit easier, but then you don't forget what you've come up with as an idea.
Yeah, and I think the Miro boards are great actually for innovating in whatever setting, so absolutely. We've got a question from Chris I'm going to let him ask, which is about food security.
Hi, John.
Chris, do you want to ask your question? Okay, I think he did, and then
am I here? Yeah, John.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Hi, John.
I can hear you, Chris. Good morning.
Thanks. Thank you, Grace. Just before we get on, this brewer's spent grain, is it available in the shops?
I think you can find it in. You'll probably, I hate to say this, you'll find it on Amazon or some health shops. We're fortunate we get it from source. We're working because brewer spent grain is a very interesting product. I mean, a lot of brewers, I mean, fortunately, we have good beer in this country, and the brewer spent grain, a lot of that goes to animal feed or gets goes to power plants and gets burnt. So it's a very interesting product, flavoursome. I think there's a lot of benefits that can come from that. There's a lot of other opportunities rather than just drying it. I mean, with this big sort of movement on miso, I personally think we could re-inoculate it and make it a plant-based, you know, like stock in the future. Again, this is my thinking. Yeah, it's a great product.
Thank you. I'm really interested. My main question was about governments taking sort of food security seriously, and are they kind of listening to what you're talking about? And that video you put at the end, there's some stuff going on in Wales here. We're trying to kind of go at it from an ecosystem approach. So, for example, the NHS in Wales buys loads of milk. Where does it get it from? What kind of milk is it? We're trying to kind of tackle it from production to the consumer end. But the sort of bit was about what role does really good recipes and cooking play in that. So one of the projects is trying to get kids involved in cooking and learning about cooking. So you tackle it from all angles. And I'm wondering, are you kind of tapping into that sort of side of stuff?
Yeah, I'm quite fortunate. Our company are very good at supporting the youth, but also supporting the older chefs. And one of the initiatives we do is Springboard, which is to do future chefs. And I'm actually an ambassador for supporting that. There's a lot of good associations out there, but that's the particular one that I sign up to and support. And it's good because it's that age group between 11 years old and up to about 14, I think, off the top of my head. But the good thing about that, you can go into senior schools. I've mentored people, I've helped them on their competitions. A lot of time I'm also doing judging, so sometimes I can't be in both places, but it is a great initiative.
That's great, John. Thank you. We've got one from Sarah next. Sarah, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah. So, am I good? Yeah.
Good.
So
Hi,
yeah,
Sarah.
I'm not a chef, John. I'm not your competition, but I do like cooking and baking. And I thought, is there a good place for starting to innovate? Because I tend to stick with what I know, what I'm safe with. But how do you know what might go without creating a huge amount of waste going, I know, let's put pineapple and beetroot in a mix together or something, you know, where do you know what might work and how do you sort of move into it just a little bit, just to have a bit more fun than just the safe food?
I suppose there's a lot of information out there for a start, but I'm fortunate I have the foundations and the foundational understanding and the science of food. So I know I can generally work it out in my head if it's going to work. And that's not to say that I don't have failures, but failures are also sometimes the opportunity of new stuff. So I look at it in a positive in both ways. If you go back to that video, for example, when I did the chocolate coated nuts, so it's a coated nut system, but I put it on chocolate instead of nuts. And the first basket, which I actually showed, was the failure. Next basket, I wasn't so impatient. In fact, impatience came in, and that's why I failed. But I kept half the mixture, and then I did freeze it back down, and then I fried the product off, and it was spot on. So sometimes we make the failure ourselves because we're just over sort of keen on moving forward. Just experiment. Sometimes I think some people make the mistake is when they change too many things at the same time. That's when you are going to fall over. So just take little bits out. If you're going to change one thing, just change one thing, not two things, because you're then going to think it was both of them.
Right.
I hope that's answered your question, Sarah. Nice to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks.
That makes sense. Just change one variable at a time, and it sounds like sometimes our own impatience can be our downfall. So that's probably a good lesson too. And just a final quickie from Emma, who's a bit cheeky, but anyway, she's got smoked venison supposedly for this weekend's barbecue. She said, what goes with it that's a bit different?
Some venison, yeah.
I do Scottish starters. I have to get a bit innovative because we didn't have a Burns night this year because of the pandemic. So we're doing a barbecue. So I always do Scottish starters. So I've got a smoker, I've got my venison, but then what goes with smoked venison?
I'll tell you what. It's actually an interesting subject because I was talking to Michael Robinson. There's a big, and we talk about sustainability. With the last couple of years in our situation, we have a situation where we've had 2 or 3 breeding seasons where there is an abundance of venison. So again, you know, there is offshots of what happens when there's no people going out hunting or shooting. But to answer your question, one of the things that I do with my venison on the barbecue is the Chinese seasoning, the 5 spice or the char siu seasoning. That really works well. And then you knock a little bit of that into the jus, so it marries and pairs.
Lovely.
Let me know. Put it on Insta. I hope that's been all right for you.
That's fabulous. Yeah. Thank you so much, John. I think we probably better leave it there, but thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and inspiring us all around food, whether we're chefs or not. It was certainly interesting to learn more about what you do and how you support some of the bigger names in the industry. Who knew that black garlic was your responsibility? I also saw tinned ants on your picture, which I think you could have kept to yourself, but seem to be all the rage these days. But thank you very much. That was great. Really, really interesting.
Thank you very much, everyone.
As always, thank you. As always, towards the end, we get Connor to spin his magic wheel and somebody wins a prize of the Innovation Training Network and their week-long course. So Connor, over to you.
Yeah, so I do apologize. I was a bit excited. I've already spun the wheel. So let me share my screen. So drum roll freeze. So we have Ahmed on this webinar. So Ahmed, I think Ahmed did just leave at 40 past because obviously we are a little bit late right now. But Zena, if you can maybe get me his email, that'll be perfect.
I shall indeed.
But yeah, Ahmed is the big winner this week. So come back next month and you might be in for a chance to win it.
Thank you for that. So thank you everyone for coming along today. We're actually going to take a bit of a break for the summer. So our next session will be on the 28th of September. So that's a date for your diary, the 28th of September. And we are going to be coming to you live from Dubai with Dubai Customs hosting and a panel discussion around innovating in the UAE. So I hope you do come back for that one, and registration will be out shortly. So thanks very much for today. Thank you again to John and to the Innovation Training Network for supporting us, and we'll see you all in a couple of months. Have a good summer.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.